Welcome to Pod Me If You Can. I'm David Farrell,
And I'm Lloyd Hughes.
and today we're tackling Captain America Civil War. And just a heads up, guys, it's 3 a.m. We just watched the midnight screenings here in Australia, and spoilers, very, very spoilers warned. You have been warned. Lloyd, we kick straight into this one. Into 1991, it's a flashback sequence, and we get to see Bucky when he's under the influence of the mind control, of the brainwashing of the Russian government and Hydra. What did you think of Bucky?
Personally, loved Winter Soldier. That's probably one of my favorite Marvel movies of all time, and he is such a threat. The villain of Bucky, he is such a tremendous threat. And I was so excited to see Civil War and see what they were going to do with that character.
And I think they handled him really well. I mean, he's dangerous in this one.
Oh yeah,
Tons of action sequences. I was a little concerned we were going to get a lot of Falcon as well. Um,
you
but,
don't like Falcon?
well, I mean, I'm hit and miss with Falcon. I didn't know how he would be handled, but the trailer and everything gave him a lot of kind of flying in on his wings. And, him and War Machine just share the fact that they can fly, and War Machine's got a lot of weapons that
They're
come out of his
growing on me.
suit.
I think the directors, Anthony Russo and Joe Russo, have handled every character in this movie so incredibly well, and I just grew to like everyone. I was the same with War Machine and the other character you just
Falcon,
mentioned,
yeah.
Falcon, and but I've grown to really like each of them. I think they're just their loyalty and the fact they're always by their side. I just really admire that. So like Sancho Panza to Sancho to Don Quixote.
Yeah. And I mean, it's obvious Don Cheadle's character, War Machine, is going to be on Iron Man's side, and it's the same way that Anthony Mackie's Sam Wilson is on Captain America's side. In the past, we watched Bucky. He extracts 5 blue gel packets, this very mysterious gel packets that later we learn basically created more Winter Soldiers. And I knew you would be jumping for joy at 5 elite warriors, Lloyd.
I love the twist at the end.
Yes, very true. We'll get to that. Um, so, look, the opening of Winter Soldier was really, it created this kind of spy game, espionage thriller, and it really did continue in Civil War. The whole opening sequence with his team, even though they have powers, it's really very much like a spy thriller. Um, Outside the Center for Infectious Diseases, there's a biological weapon, and Crossbones were introduced to as a villain. He's They seem to have been tracking him prior to this movie, and the opening action sequence, it's pretty great. Captain America gets to
It
confront.
reminded me a lot of Casino Royale, that opening sequence, just of the fact that they're all, undercover, so to speak, tracking these guys, and then I don't know, that African sort of background. I just had a lot of Casino Royale
I can
there.
appreciate that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that whole biological weapon was obviously just a red herring. I thought that was going to be integral to the plot, but it's just a red vial of blood or something. It doesn't actually play any part in the film.
It's a terrorist weapon.
Yeah, that's it. But what did you think of Crossbones, played by Captain America's former?
He was awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, just a really cool soldier.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, it was great to see him sort of like with the mask off. You get to see the fact that he's got this history. He had a building drop on him or whatever he says, and he's all burnt up. And that's turned him into Crossbones. He's become this villain through necessity, really. Um, we get a kind of his name is Red Wing introduction to Anthony Mackie's little mini Falcon, I guess you could call it. I understand in the comics it's an actual Falcon, but here it does make more sense for it to be like a little remote control kind of deal.
Yeah,
Um,
well, and the sense of humor here was just brilliant throughout the film. Like the biggest problem I had with Avengers 2 was there was just too many quips, and every single one, every single character, it could have been a cleaner in the background, just had a funny, witty line, and
mm,
it just got so annoying. Joss Whedon just has no restraint when it comes to those quips, and he just let loose all throughout Age of Ultron. In this, it was really put in check. Like I found the humor came at the right moments, and they didn't go overboard with it. And overall, the film was a really dark, cold tale of revenge and how that really eats away at their souls.
yeah, and I really enjoyed Scarlet Witch, Elizabeth Olsen's character. I thought there was so much going on behind her eyes. The
Yeah,
fact.
other than the fact that she's a fantastic actress, but we get to see more of her in action, which is great. And they dropped a line there. They said all your powers came from Loki's staff. I thought they were mutants.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that either.
I guess they changed the mythology quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I think that was Vision perhaps saying, because that was a scene where they talked about the the stone in Vision's head, and I think he said that the stone gave Loki his powers. Was that not what he said?
Yeah,
Because it was in the
yeah.
staff.
Mm.
So I sort of thought that's what they were referring to there, but
Oh, I thought he said the Infinity Stone gives me my powers, and the Loki staff gave you your. Oh, I don't know. I could have misheard
it's possible. We've seen this once. It is late at
it.
night, but
And there was so much in it.
it's true. It's the longest Marvel movie yet.
Really? Wow, I didn't know that. The movie is so dense, and the greatest thing this does, I love the dialogue scenes. I love the talk scenes. It's just showing my age. Some of those car chase sequences just went on a bit long for me. For me, I just wanted to get more to the politics.
Mm.
And the great thing about what this movie does is gives you both sides. So there's actually three sides going on there. Of course, the main villain, and you really feel his emotion and his um, uh, objective and why he's doing what he's doing, which is a fantastic written character. And you also get Captain America side, and you also get Iron Man side.
Yeah, you're speaking, of course, of Daniel Bruhl's character, who's Helmer to Zemo. You don't find out his motivations until the end of the film, so it's all a bit murky in the lead up.
He was from Rush, wasn't he?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Why do
Uh,
you keep calling me a rat? A rat is a very smart character.
Crossbones explodes himself. Basically, he's wearing a suicide bomber vest at the end of the opening sequence, and the thing that happens is Scarlet Witch has to create kind of a bubble and push him up into the air, which destroys part of a building, and that's really the instigating event that then causes them to be in need of being in check, basically.
And
Um,
not long after that, we're shown that video of all the disasters that have happened in the Marvel universe, and it really highlights how much damage these heroes are doing to the average person.
mm,
Because when Scarlet Witch puts up that guy and he blows up, I'm assuming a few people die from that explosion in that building,
yeah, that's right.
and
Wakandans died, which is the fictional African nation that Black Panther is from. They happen to be there in that building, I guess.
yeah, absolutely. And this is like war just creates constantly monsters. And that's what I feel Civil War is all about. And it's touching on ISIS in a sense, like the idea that, the Iraq war, toppling governments, destroying lives, and then ISIS being able to form and recruit soldiers that are just hungry for vengeance. And I feel like the villain of Civil War is that ideology that their families have been absolutely butchered and destroyed, and there's nothing left for them, for these survivors, but vengeance, and they'll do whatever it takes. And we see scenes of terrorism constantly, especially with the bomb going off at that United Nations meeting. And it's just evokes so much imagery. What you were saying, Dave, when we did our Man of Steel podcast on how much September 11th has influenced the imagery
Yeah.
of movies, and you see it all throughout this film, especially with the news broadcast, and that just gives you a different perspective of superhero movies in general. Just very brilliantly done.
Exactly. And I mean, since Man of Steel, there was so much backlash about how many people were killed in, the Zod versus Superman fight at the end of that film. And since then, there's been so much of an onus on, like, civilian casualties. And it was
Yeah,
heavily mentioned in Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice as well.
that's
Uh,
right. Yeah.
our first image of Tony Stark for the film, it looks like a flashback. You meet up with his parents, and it's this holographic sequence where Robert Downey Jr. has been aged down. He looks like bad boy Robert Downey Jr. From his drug younger days.
This is the second time the Marvel films have done it so well, taken the actor and aged them through CGI, and they did it so incredibly well with Michael Douglas in Ant-Man.
Yeah,
And they've done it really well with Robert Downey Jr. here, and I really can't wait to see like a Clint Eastwood or someone play a small cameo, but they age him down to look younger. And
Yeah,
just not just Clint Eastwood himself, but like other older actors. I just want to see more of this technology being utilized.
I think Michael Douglas expressed an interest in doing a prequel type movie where he's,
Oh,
CGI aged down the whole time for Ant-Man.
that's cool.
Yeah. Um, Pepper Potts is not there. They don't have Gwyneth Paltrow. She's not in the film. That's cool. Basically, Tony Stark has a guilty meeting at an elevator with this woman who blames Stark, for.
That's Viola Davis, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, she has such a presence. And we also saw a brief the Dean from Community. That's a second Community actor who's played a key sort of cameo in the Captain America films. The first one, of course, being a bed in Winter Soldier, and then now we get the Dean, and he's going. I wonder if some funding could go to the faculty. I was like, is that the same character from Community? I'd like to think it's the same universe. But yeah, then we have that scene with Viola Davis and just the tenacity in her eyes. Like I could be wrong, might not be Viola Davis. I'm trying to look it up, but IMDb is just all over the place with its
Mm.
cast. I just can't be bothered to get through it.
We'll
And
get
that
to
was
it.
Marissa. We'll get to it, but that was Marissa Tomei as um,
Aunt
Spider-Man's
May.
auntie.
Yeah,
Is
Aunt
that
May.
was that Marissa Tomei?
It was, yeah.
That's incredible. They never cut to a close up. It was always in long shot. This
Wow.
absolutely beautiful woman. I was just like, oh. Oh, sorry. Back to Viola Davis. Yeah, she delivers such a key moment, saying that my son died there, and then from that moment, you're really in Tony Stark's head, going, okay, he's really scarred from this. This is really going to affect his decisions throughout the rest of the film.
Yeah, I think we should stop referring to her as Viola Davis. I don't think it is.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, exactly. The Dean from Community made me laugh. Definitely imagine him as the same Dean and wanting funding gave me a chuckle. Uh, what was interesting to me after that was we got to see Vision trying to be normal, wearing clothes and cooking. Just such a change at the Avengers headquarters from the Vision we've seen in Age of Ultron. Um, did you find some comedy in Vision's, normalness?
Anyone who's seen our who will Thanos kill video no on YouTube will know that I don't like Vision character at all. But I don't know. There's just something about him that just creeps me out.
Yeah, fair enough. No, I can appreciate that. We get the scene which is in all the trailers, which is, we need to be put in check. We see the Secretary of State, which is the captain who was previously in The Incredible Hulk. And while some see them as heroes, some see them as dangerous vigilantes. And the Avengers will work for the UN if they all sign on. Um, then the thing that happens next I thought was great, which is the first funeral sequence. Agent Peggy Carter has died. Of course, she's, 90 something years old. We did see her in The Winter Soldier, and she was sort of the last link Captain America had to his past, besides
Other
Bucky.
than Bucky, yeah.
Yeah, and the reveal that Sharon Carter, played by Emily Van Camp, that no one knew they were related, and she gives that speech where she says at the funeral, you got to plant yourself like a tree and say no, you move, which really puts her on the same side as Captain America. And I mean, I knew from the minute we saw her that she was going to be a love interest for Chris Evans.
Yeah, that was like kind of convenient how she's the daughter.
Yep.
I just thought, oh gosh, my eyes kind of roll at that moment. But I'm sure fans have. I don't know if there was references to that in Marvel's Agents of Shield. I don't know if she's on in there, but it's just like, oh, of course, she's related.
Everything's connected in the Marvel universe, man. Um, then Black Widow turns up, saying staying together is more important than how you stay together. And she's going to the United Nations, where, as you mentioned, there's going to be a bombing. We get the first look at Black Panther and the intro to the King of Wakanda. And as soon as there was that lingering contact between the father and son, I knew there was going to be a death here for
They
King.
foreshadowed it a lot when he touches his face.
Yeah,
It's like, well, you're dead.
yes, yes. I felt very bad for, just quickly on Sharon Carter when she gets kissed by Captain America later. I was like, oh, you might die next. The kiss of death there. Everyone close to these heroes is in danger, as we will learn through this film. So basically, Bucky, as far as they know, has exploded this bomb at the UN. We do get a little bit of info about Zemo throughout this. He has a device in his hotel room. He does a very interesting sequence where he tortures a Hydra member who won't give him any information about December 16th, 1991, and he'd rather die, and he says, "Hail Hydra." The thing is, Black Widow released these Hydra files some years ago, or a year ago, and he's been thinking of nothing else for a year but his mission, which we'll get to. Bucky basically seems to... This was really interesting. When Captain America finds him, he says, "Buck, stop, you're going to kill someone." And he says, "I'm not going to kill anyone," because he seems reformed. Something is... He remembers everything, he remembers all these murders he's committed, and, he's the Winter Soldier, but he doesn't want to be anymore, Lloyd.
That fight scene that follows when they have that discussion and the German special forces are trying to zero in on them reminded me so much of The Professional with Gary Oldman, how they've just got, the professional actually cornered, and he has to shoot his way out of there. Just absolutely, like everything in this movie and with the Winter Soldier film that preceded this, the action scenes are just absolutely mind-blowing, just very, very well choreographed.
And Captain America's obviously great in a tight space. We've seen him fight in an elevator last film. So
yeah, that was a great sequence.
So in a stairwell this time, it made no difference. He obviously came out on top.
And that's when we see Black Panther for the first time fighting.
Yeah,
and I love the suit. It's just a really awesome suit.
Yeah, and we are treated to a brief fight between Bucky and Black Panther. The character Black Panther blames Bucky for the death of the father, which is King T'Chaka. And at this stage, it seems like Bucky has exploded the bomb at the UN. He didn't, just so you know. We've already done a spoiler warning, though. So we get a brief fight between them leading into the car chase sequence in the tunnel. And that's been heavily publicized in released clips and, in the trailer. Did you find it odd to see Captain America driving a car?
I found it odd them running, actually.
Really?
Like, I was just like, are they going hyperspeed running? Like, I know they're fast, but they just seem to be running faster than cars. I was a bit confused at that point. And then when Captain America got into the car, and I go, well, that makes a lot more sense because it would be faster. I don't think these guys have Flash-like speed.
Yeah. Well, I guess Black Panther might. I mean, he's got a hell of a lot of speed and agility. What I thought was
He
cool...
moves like a panther.
Yeah, how about that? How about Bucky taking over that bike, which was totally cool. It was in slow motion, and
Yeah.
he, uses his arm to basically lift a civilian's bike, and then in one motion, kind of get back onto it. Fantastic. And the chase ends inevitably in a stalemate, with War Machine there saying, "Congratulations, Captain, you're a criminal." And did you notice there was like a shink claw sound from Black Panther? He's got a Wolverine kind of claw sound when he retracts those claws.
No. Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I thought it was a little interesting note. It's all Marvel, Vision is cooking with Scarlet Witch, and he's basically keeping her there. She's a prisoner, which she didn't realize until she tried to leave. And they both have such an interesting dynamic, and they're both so powerful. I did wonder how they would be handled in this film, Lloyd.
Yeah, like there's obviously some form of a relationship there that I think is going to be pursued a bit more in the later versions, because obviously they're the most even match. So like how we always discuss Hawkeye versus Scarlet versus Black Widow.
Yeah.
We obviously got Scarlet Witch versus Vision, and she's got powers that are really undefined. We don't really know the full potential of Scarlet Witch.
The comedy, as you mentioned, was fantastic. When they're in the car together with Black Panther, I like how Falcon says, "So you like cats?" And Black Panther mentions that, much like the Phantom, the character of the Phantom, the Black Panther mantle has been passed on for generations, We're treated to Martin Freeman's character, who's Everett Ross. He's in a total of 2 scenes, one now and one at the end of the film. And yeah, pretty much a wasted character, really. Just a a cameo for Martin Freeman from Hobbit fame, The Office, if you will. Stark mentions Ultron was his fault, and he's talking to Captain America, and he says, "Oh, you knew Howard? He never mentioned that only 1,000 times." There's a really other child syndrome, other family thing going on here, like trying to be daddy's favorite almost. Captain America knew Tony Stark's dad, Howard
Yeah.
Stark, and maybe liked him better. Howard Stark only knew his son as kind of a drop kick and a playboy and whatever.
Yeah, he never saw his son become Captain America. That's the big tragedy.
And there's also
Um,
that theme from Skyfall, oh sorry, Spectre, where Christoph Waltz's character, like the cuckoo bird thing,
mhm.
um, that basically he's infiltrated the nest. Daniel Craig's James Bond was adopted into his family, which is a pretty wacky thing, but that they're basically two sons of the same father kind of thing. There's this really interesting dynamic to Captain America and Iron Man in this. Um, I like how Falcon mentioned bird costume. his outfit gets checked. They're all criminals now. They're under arrest basically, and his filed as a bird costume. Zemo has infiltrated the interview, and he's talking to Bucky. Basically, he's got the command to brainwash him again, so he does so. And one of the words I noticed was homecoming, which is interesting because that's now been announced as the new name of the latest Spider-Man film. So I don't know if they threw that in just for fanboys. It was just a random sequence of words and numbers, but one
Hmm.
of the words was homecoming. So he, of course, finds out about December 16th, 1991, and the mission report, what Bucky did that night, which is crucial to the finale of this film. They try and contain Bucky, and we get that sequence where Iron Man puts on the Iron Hand and stops a bullet. That was all pretty awesome, even though I'd seen it before. Lloyd, you enjoy the whole escape sequence?
Yeah, no, that was really well done. We see Iron Man very underpowered in that sequence. He didn't have his suit at all, and Black Widow getting really choked there. And I thought that was really dumb how Captain America's girlfriend comes in there to ninja kick the guys. Like, oh, come on.
Yeah, it was interesting how they got Sharon in there to fight as well, and kind of makes her Captain America's girl because she's really like the kind of person who'll selflessly fight even when she doesn't have to. We kind of saw a little bit of that in the Winter Soldier where she defied Hydra. As well, Bucky gets into a helicopter, and this was the scene that Chris Evans was working out for, and you know it, where he stops the helicopter from taking off. Bucky's in the helicopter, and he's going to go, and Chris Evans can't let him. Well, Captain America can't let him, and so we get the ultimate flex, Lloyd. It was interesting though. The helicopter crashes into a river, and Captain America gets to save Bucky this time. And at the end of the Winter Soldier, it was the reverse, of course. Um, Look, there's sort of shades of Batman vs Superman here as well. I'll just quickly say spoilers for that if you haven't seen it. Bucky is in the Vice, and he mentions your mother's name was Sarah to Captain America, and that really made me think of Martha was my mother's name, from Batman vs Superman, Lloyd.
Yeah.
Um, thankfully it wasn't a running theme, and Tony Stark's mum wasn't the same name as Bucky's mum, who wasn't the same name as Captain America's mum. But we're given the reveal that the gel serum from the start of the film has created 5 elite super soldiers, and this is information Captain America has that Iron Man does not have, and he wouldn't believe him, even if he tried to talk to him, which I kind of thought he should try and tell him this, at least, but he doesn't. Instead, we get the build up to the scene in the trailer, which is at the airport for the ultimate fight. Now, because they're understaffed, as Black Widow says, it would be great if we had a Hulk, says Tony Stark, which is fantastic. Apparently, Mark Ruffalo was seen, uh, he was going to be doing a scene in this film, but it was cut. So he's not in the film at all, no Mark Ruffalo. But Tom Holland, who plays Peter Parker, and Marissa Tomei, who plays Aunt May, both of them meet with Tony Stark. And Lloyd, I don't know if you know this, Tony Stark Iron Man's been confirmed to be appearing in the Spider-Man movie.
Oh, cool.
So this relationship they've started in this one, where Tony Stark calls him Spiderling or Spider Boy, you know, and looks at his retro Mac classic and stuff. You know, this whole exchange, everything they've built up here is just setting up for Spider-Man's solo film.
It's interesting with this adaptation of Spider-Man how much of Iron Man, Tony Stark has manufactured Spider-Man effectively.
Yeah,
Like he's pretty much given him the money for his suit. Obviously given him pointers to make the webs stronger. I don't know if that was in that, but I was just like, oh, okay, because I always imagined Spider-Man as a self-made person. He manufactured his suit. He's like almost like a pretty much a scientist.
mm.
So it's interesting the direction they're taking it.
And also interesting, they showed some footage from YouTube, if you will, um, where Spider-Man has goggles, and Tony Stark acknowledges that the goggles are kind of dumb, and like this leads to us seeing the suit that Tony Stark helps him manufacture, as you mentioned, with the new eyes that seem to be kind of an iris. That's interesting. Did you get the sexual tension between Marissa Tomei and Robert Downey Jr.?
Yeah, yeah.
I do feel like that's going to rear its head, and a bit of a love interest in the
It's
Spider-Man
just
film.
interesting how they shot that sequence. Like, obviously, I recognized the star. I was just like, "That's is that Marissa Tomei?" But they never punch in for the close up. Just interesting how they cast her, and they just put her as one of the as a part of the population. Part of the cast sort of thing. It's just like equivalent of having like, oh, there's Michael Douglas in the background of he's
Mm.
one of the scientists.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they get great casting in Marvel, that's for sure. There must be very lucrative paychecks as well. Spider-Man's keen on keeping his identity a secret. Obviously, Tony Stark has seen the difference that revealing yourself and saying, I am Iron Man, there's a real difference to his life now. And he says, I can't go to Germany. I have homework, which got a big laugh in our theatre. I think the levity of the Spider-Man sequence, really lifted my cinema because everything beyond this got big laughs for every possible
Yeah,
joke.
like because there was so much dialogue scenes. I felt some of the people getting a bit bored in my theater.
Hmm.
And at that point, when Spider-Man's introduced, you can feel everyone going, "Oh, I think that's Spider-Man," and them just the hype and the build-up and the humor that like that line just cracked everyone up.
Exactly. And then we get the return of Hawkeye, who's everybody's favorite bow-wielding human. And he arrives to save Scarlet Witch from Vision's capture, or, house arrest, and asks, what are you doing here? And he says, disappointing my kids. Of course, we met his wife and kids, excuse me, in the last film. So, in Age of Ultron, and he was effectively retired. So he's back, and obviously it's an important cause. Captain America's brought him up to speed. And did you like Scarlet Witch, how she had to push Vision? You see her pushing him to the ground, and then she shoves him down like 40 floors.
Yeah,
That's
just
just like
puts
a
him away.
sampling of her power.
I'm still confused of how much power Vision has. Like he seems to be, almost to be transparent. Like he could just go through people, and he
Yeah.
has laser coming out of his out of that stone on his forehead. I'm still not quite sure exactly what he can do, but obviously he's very powerful.
Vague on his powers, but certainly very powerful. The Captain America recruitment was great. Bucky sitting in the car seat behind Falcon. He says, can you move your seat up? And Falcon goes, no. Huge laugh in my audience.
Yeah, no, that was probably the funniest scene in the movie.
But then Captain America kisses Sharon Carter, presumably, and they're both nodding in the car, Bucky and Falcon, which got a huge laugh. I thought it was hilarious. Just like about time, there's that sense of Captain America not being very good with his love life, too. Ant-Man, of course, appears, Scott Lang, who, hilarious, lots of good laughs from Paul Rudd. He's kept it very light in this film. I did wonder if Wanda had any other clothes, because I feel like you only see Scarlet Witch in the same outfit all the time.
Did she
Um,
have that red leather jacket in Age of Ultron? I can't
yeah,
remember.
yeah, yeah, I think she did.
Okay.
At the end, at least. Look, it's so
Shouldn't they
weird.
give them all the uniforms like in X-Men?
Yeah, well, maybe one day if they become really under the control of the UN, maybe that's what they'll do. Um, I love the airport line where he said, "Isn't it so weird how you run into people at the airport?" Which of course leads to Spider-Man's reveal from the trailer where he takes the shield, and it's such an awkward sort of scene. You know, Spider-Man doesn't know when to shut up, which is great. Um, and then we're paired off. You know, Widow fights with Ant-Man for a little bit, which was hilarious. Ant-Man thought he was going to take on Black Widow and didn't know what he was in for. Black Panther fights. Who does he fight?
I think he fights with the Winter Soldier.
I think he fights Captain America as well. He scratches his
Okay.
shield, certainly.
Yeah.
Spider Man gets to fight both Bucky and Falcon and sort of holds his own pretty well. Um, you know, there's everybody's got a gimmick was very funny, which is what Falcon yells at Spider Man as well. He's able to use that little Red Wing sort of Falcon robot again, and Bucky says, "Couldn't you have done that earlier?" And Falcon just says, "I hate you," which just creates such an interesting dynamic between the two of them. They're both kind of the best friend of Captain America, which is great. I found Scarlet Witch kept saving people, you know. Hawkeye was fighting Widow and he was holding back because he didn't want to hurt her. And so Wanda sort of intervened and threw her across into some car or something. And when Bucky's fighting Panther, Captain America's fighting Spider-Man, she's sort of right there to sort of help out, you know, make sure things don't collapse.
What was Vision doing?
I don't really know. He sort of seemed to arrive late.
I
Um,
thought he was there from the beginning. Oh, I could be wrong.
no, look, it's entirely possible. He seemed to just be hovering above, not getting distracted at the start anyway. The scene with Captain America versus Spider Man was great. You see that in so many video games, and the fact that they both related to each other based on one was from Queens and one was from Brooklyn, you know, both New York guys, and so there was kind of a nod to that as well. Um, Ant Man getting an Iron Man suit, I thought was fantastic. It's the thing you want to see happen because you know Ant Man can get in there. You know, he can take down Iron Man from within. Thought it was a bit of a cop out that he had some kind of gas that would release inside the suit to flush out Ant Man, like as if he would
Yeah.
have thought of that.
I like it
Um,
how he goes throw this at this truck,
yeah,
and he goes, "Oh, I thought that was a water truck."
yeah, that was good. He's still sort of. The funny thing is, yeah, Scott Lang's still learning to be Ant Man.
Yeah, well, Ant-Man and Spider-Man for me stole the movie. They were just absolutely hilarious. Their humor came in at the right time. They, just alleviated this whole situation, just their antics and how they're just still struggling to put themselves in this universe, sort of thing. Like,
Yeah.
how do they fit in?
While the fight scene between Falcon and War Machine was literally just the two black characters flying around, the great twist of the scene was Giant Man, which Ant Man obviously became gigantic, which was fantastic. It was ruined a little bit. There was a vinyl pop toy that was released, and it said Giant Man, which added to the speculation that Ant Man would become Giant Man in this film. But it prompted a line from Spider Man that I thought was great, which was Spider Man said, "Holy shit," which for a kind of kid friendly superhero, I thought was great.
Hmm.
Giant Man crashing around through things, grabbing people, you know, the eyes, you can only see the eyes of Paul Rudd. And he's just like, whoa, like so impressed that this has even happened, I suppose. Um, did you like the way Giant Man was taken down?
And he has to reference Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, Spider Man says, "Do you know that really old movie, Empire Strikes Back? You know what they did with those?" And he doesn't call them like AT-ATs or AT-ATs or anything. He just like, you know, those like droid walking things or whatever he says, because he's 19, you know, in the film. Tom Holland, the actor, is 19 years old. Um, Basically, we see that blast that goes up to hit uh, War Machine in the trailer, and it's the way it's edited is to make it look like the Winter Soldier shoots, and then War Machine falls, and it makes it look like he's a villain. But it's been speculated that blast looked like a Vision blast, and it was. Vision shoots from very far away, aiming for Falcon, and hits Vision. Hits War Machine, who starts falling to Earth, and basically Iron Man has to save War Machine, um, or head down and see if he's all right at least, which allows the Winter Soldier and Captain America to escape. Black Widow assists in their escape, which, as Iron Man says later, is must be hard not being a double agent anymore. Sort of he focuses on that. Did you think they'd kill War Machine here, especially showing those shots in the trailer of him?
No, I'm at the point in the Marvel world where they're not going to kill anyone. Like it's getting pretty ridiculous.
I know, which is why we had that other video, I suppose, to speculate as to who gets killed. Um, Vision says he was distracted, and basically War Machine has got some kind of paralysis. He's in rehab at the end of this, trying to walk again. Um, it's revealed to Tony Stark that Helmut Zemo, in a kind of little exposition video from his new Jarvis, which is Friday. So he's got a female voice. It's like his girl Friday, who's his new computer operating system. Um, Everything's revealed about the chamber and the 5 frozen elite people who are there. And we see Baron Zemo going to presumably release these 5 elite soldiers. So there will be 5 people as strong as, if not stronger than, the Winter Soldier. We see this water prison where everybody gets kept. Hawkeye's been captured, Wanda's been captured, Sam, as well as Ant-Man, Scott Lang, and they have this, like, Hawkeye and Iron Man have this exchange right before Ant-Man tries to have an exchange with Tony Stark, and then he says, "Who are you?" which is fantastic. Tony Stark's never met Ant-Man, so look, we head to this final compound. All the while, Black Panther seems to be following in a plane and just following. They didn't give him a lot to do in the third act. He's just kind of there, isn't he, Lloyd? He doesn't fight anybody, and he just he's there to basically talk to Zemo in the final scenes.
I think he just saw it. It's not his business.
Yeah.
He just strikes me as a character that's smart enough. He saw what was going on, and the moment that video was played revealing that the Winter Soldier did kill, like Bucky did kill Captain America's parents, it's just like, all right, I have no right to step in at this point, and I think he just left it. I don't think it's a case of like the writers were being lazy with him. I think that was a very intelligent strategy.
As you said, and I think you just said Captain America's parents, there was a video that shows Bucky killed Iron Man's parents. In 1991, he was responsible for the car accident that ultimately kills, and then he beats to death both of Tony Stark's parents. And that big reveal in the third act is what Zemo wants. That's his evil plan. He wants to turn Tony Stark against Captain America and have the heroes kill each other because his entire family, Lloyd, of course, have been killed. You thought that was a great motivation for him?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the brilliance of Captain America, is that it foreshadows. Of course, the whole thing is a civil war, and that's what the whole film's about. But the film seems to foreshadow these 5 elite assassins that are going to emerge for the third act. And I just thought, my gosh, how are they going to do this? We're so exhausted with that massive 17-minute fight scene with the Avengers fighting each other. And then the moment I saw the bullet holes in each of those assassins, that this guy, Daniel Bruhl's character, did not, he just shot him. Like, that was not his intention at all. It was just for them to lure them in one small place and for them to fight each other, is just an absolutely tremendous climax. And we see, and the landscape, the set piece they use in this is just that winter landscape, just that revenge, the cold heart of revenge has really consumed a lot of the characters here, and Black Panther realizes it. And I kind of wish he allowed him to pull the trigger and allow Zemo to kill himself. But I guess the Black Panther didn't want him to have such an easy way out. But I was kind of hoping he'd just give him that chance, because he gives such a good reason for why he's doing what he's doing. The Avengers have created these monsters, these people that are just out for vengeance for what they've done to their families, the people that they've killed in the crossfire. It's just an ugly thing, any kind of war. And they got one of the best actors to play this character, Daniel Bruhl. I think he just did an excellent excellent job. And the interesting thing about the choreography throughout this whole movie, the action scenes are just absolutely tremendous, but you also got this small layer of like a Cold War underneath it. You're constantly getting scenes of people like dead in bathtubs. You know what I mean? Like that guy, like I thought he committed suicide, but it's obviously somebody being strangled. Like obviously Daniel Bruhl's character's killed him. And
Yeah.
then we get other scenes of that torture-like sequence where the water is just floating up. Like it isn't very kid-friendly, those scenes, yet the action sequences where the Avengers are fighting each other are kind of kid friendly, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Like people are being thrown through airplanes and trucks and everything like that, but they could still get up and go, oh, there's two layers there to the violence. One, of course, for real people, for actual people that really suffer, you know, the moment a bullet flies at them, they will die. And of course, the Avengers, which they can take considerable amount of damage. But nevertheless, both those action sort of styles mesh really well. The brothers did an incredible job putting them together in this movie.
Mm. As you mentioned, Zemo's there at the end with a gun, and Black Panther watches him and stops him from committing suicide. Says, you know, the living aren't done with you yet. On the inside of this compound, though, the fight is going on between Captain America and Bucky and Iron Man, and it's very much a fight to the death, because Captain America did know that this is how Tony Stark's parents died, and that kind of betrayal has really set Iron Man off. Um, he says to Bucky, you know, do you even remember them? And he says, I remember all of them, which is more of that kind of post-war shock stuff going on, Lloyd.
Yeah.
What did you think of the climax of the fight?
Yeah, that one sequence where we saw a bit in the shadows, like it looked like bit in the shadows, bit in the trailers. We saw, it looked like from the trailers, it looked like Iron Man was just going to absolutely take a beating, but he does actually win that scenario, and it wasn't. It's not till the very last section where Captain America thrusts his shield into the chest of Iron Man, effectively taken away his best weapon, which is the suit, and the battle's pretty much over there. But
That shield in the chest
the
was really iconic too.
yeah, oh man, and then him leaving the shield there, just wow. But
That's right.
Zemo's character, what he says, like, has my plan failed? You know, and
Did I
it
fail? Yeah.
really, yeah, because really it hasn't. I just love it how he has no superpowers. This guy just kills the five top assassins that this film, like you think is going to build up to a massive showdown between these five super assassins, but it isn't. That wasn't the point of the film. The point of the film was, you know, this is I'm going to turn you against each other, and it really has scarred them. I feel, and I hope it that this sort of idea sort of weaves its way in through the rest of the Marvel stories as we build to Infinity War.
Yeah. The last sort of thing Iron Man gets to say to Captain America is, you know, that shield doesn't belong to you. My father made that shield,
So he drops it.
which makes Captain America drop the shield, and it's got those scratches in it from Black Panther from earlier.
Does he
And
want to take the steroids back as well?
he probably would if he could. Um, this kind of fracturing is, of course, what we predicted, that the team would split and then need to regroup for Infinity Wars later. In, you know, in parts. You know, you've got two parts of Infinity Wars, so you've got to see how powerful Thanos is, and then basically reform the Avengers to ultimately defeat him. Rhodes is rehabbing, and Stan Lee's cameo in this film, he comes up as a FedEx man, and he says, "Are you Tony Stank?" Which, of course, makes Rhodes and the entire audience laugh. And it's an apology letter and a phone from Captain America, and he's basically saying, if you need me, I'll be there, you know, but he's sorry, obviously, about not telling him about his parents. It sort of shows he's going to break everybody out of prison, you know. The final shot of the film is him approaching, you know, Sam, who's been locked up, or they've all been locked up, and he's going to let them out, basically.
And
And
is
it's
like William Hurt going to be like the new villain? Like, you know, like that's a little bit of a foreshadow there, maybe.
maybe, perhaps, it's kind of a temporary retirement, I feel like, for Captain America. I feel like you can rest the character for a while now. You know, Chris Evans doesn't have to get burnt out being Captain America. We did totally gloss over the fact that Bucky gets his arm ripped off in that fight sequence as well, which is as close as somebody comes to dying. Besides seeing Tony Stark's parents die on screen, as well as Peggy Carter, who dies off screen, and you go to her funeral. No one dies in the film, but Bucky does lose his metal arm, which kind of renders him useless as a hero.
So they literally freeze him in carbonite.
That's right. The mid-credits scene, we're almost at the end now. The mid-credits scene involves a one-armed Bucky sitting in what we presume is Wakanda, because Black Panther's there and he's provided a facility, and Captain America's there and he says, "Thank you for this." If they find out he's here, they'll come for him, and basically Black Panther says, "Let them try," and it shows this kind of statue of a Black Panther outside before cutting to the rest of the credits. Of course, there is a post-credit sequence as well, and it's Tom Holland who is with, his Aunt May, Peter Parker and Aunt May, and basically she's like, "Who hit you?" And, he says, "The guy was huge," which refers to Giant Man in the fight earlier. And it shows this great wrist cuff that's shooting like a red holographic light, and it's the advanced tech that obviously Tony Stark has provided, like as a thank you for helping and, as an ongoing kind of development into him being a superhero. And the final text said Spider-Man will return, which doesn't tell us whether or not Captain America will return. I'm assuming he won't be back till Infinity Wars. But next we have Hulk and Thor. Hulk apparently is going to be in Thor 3. And there's a Spider-Man to look forward to. There's a Black Panther movie and a Doctor Strange movie on the horizon. There's a lot going on in the Marvel Universe, Lloyd.
Did you see Civil War in 3D, Dave?
I didn't, mate. You're the only one.
I saw it in 3D, and it was not worth seeing in 3D. The only thing great about the 3D were the big, massive titles saying where we were, like 1991, and then in Berlin, Vienna, all the titles coming up. That was the only thing that was really grand about the 3D. And, of course, Scarlett Johansson and, of course, the beautiful Scarlet Witch. But the 3D wasn't that great. I saw it at Hoyt's. And they gave us a free limited edition Civil War poster, which was really cool. My cinema wasn't packed much, but I think there was a lot of people lining up. I think they all went to the non-3D version.
Mm-hmm. For me, it was a relatively full cinema. Those big title cards you mentioned reminded me of like Ocean's 11 or Ocean's 13.
I thought that was so unnecessary. I just thought, yeah, I know. Like, just show a landmark.
Yeah,
and get it.
Yeah, they were rather large titles, but the other thing that reminded me of Ocean's 11 was Basher, who's played by Don Cheadle in Ocean's 11. They use a pinch, which a pinch is like a bomb, and it's like an electromagnetic pulse.
Yeah.
And they used it in this as well. Baron Zemo was hiding like a pinch that knocked out the electronics temporarily. So just a quick nod to Ocean's 11 there.
And I just want to correct myself. It's Alfre Woodard who played who I thought was Viola Davis at the beginning of the film. She was fantastic in Star Trek First Contact. I think she delivers a very key scene which got Captain America really emotional about young people dying and the effects that the Avengers have had. And we see a little bit of how much he cares for Spider-Man when he says, "No, you're it, kid. You're out. Okay, just sit down. You're out of the fight." He doesn't want him getting hurt anymore. And I don't know if in the Spider-Man spin-off we're gonna see a little bit more like a father and son thing maybe. There, like I'm not too sure, but that was a little interesting element there to Iron Man.
Yeah. And I knew it wasn't Viola Davis as well, just because she's in Suicide Squad, which of course is DC.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, there's no way she's in both. But I was like, maybe it's Davis.
And that's what threw us. Look, thanks very much, guys, for listening. You can obviously find more from us at podmeifyoucan.com. And stay tuned to the website and to the podcast. We're going to cover X-Men in the coming month and probably many more of these Marvel DC films.
Thanks for watching. If you like what you see, please hit the subscribe button. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Check out our podcast at www.podmeifyoucan.com.